In this video, we'll show you how to build a foredeck bag from one of Sailrite's foredeck bag kits. This is a great way to store your sail above deck and protect it from the UV and the elements out of a Sunbrella fabric. As you can see here, the lines are plotted on the Sunbrella fabric from Sailrite on its 50-foot plotter bed, and we're using a hot knife just to cut along these lines to seal the edge. You can also use scissors. All materials and supplies are included in your foredeck bag kit. We'll take those dacron patches, those are reinforcement patches that help prevent any kind of abrasion from happening as the foredeck bag rides along your stay. We'll assemble it on both sides of this material right at that V section. Deb will hold those 2 layers of dacron onto that section as she placed it on that V, and then she takes it to the sewing machine and sews a zigzag stitch, reversing at the beginning and end of each corner. Now, if you do not have a zigzag, don't worry, you can do this with a straight stitch just as easily, and it'll hold up quite well. When Deb gets to the corners, she will bury the needle, pivot the material around, and continue sewing down the perimeter. We're using the professional long arm. This is a 20.5-inch long arm. You'll notice there with her arm on the right that she's reversing at the beginning and reversing at the end of each one of these stitches, just to lock that thing in place. For your information, this machine is using the MC-SCR power system, all kinds of slow speed control and power. We'll now create a slit here in this dacron patch. This slit will be 3 inches long. That's what we're showing here in the video. And we're going to sew around the perimeter of this slit, and this will be where the stay rests on the foredeck bag. Okay, now we'll sew around that as well. So we'll start here and do a reverse to lock the stitch in place. Sew to the beginning, do a reverse here. And we'll start again on the opposite side of that line. Don't sew into the line because we're actually going to take our scissors and cut right on that line. So make sure your stitches are off that line so you don't cut your stitches. Good. Now we'll finish it up by sewing on the raw edge of this Sunbrella. So you notice that all the perimeters are sewn completely. And that does it. Now we'll cut out that section of dacron right up a flush against that Sunbrella fabric underneath. And then we'll cut along this line all the way to that 3-inch mark and stop short. Right there. That's done. We'll now take the long strips of dacron tape, and they'll be about 7.5 inches long, and we'll fold it down the center. We'll take 2 of those strips and do the same thing. Those will be used near the bottom of this foredeck bag, and we'll attach those with a zigzag stitch near the fold and also near the raw edge. If you do not have a zigzag machine, don't worry, do it with a straight stitch. Reverse at the beginning and the end. There's one pass, let's work on the second pass. And that's it. Now do this to the other side as well, and trim off that excess material right against the raw edge of the Sunbrella underneath. There we are. Do this to the other side and you are complete with that. So now we have both sides installed. We'll now concentrate on the round bottom piece. This will have a loop of webbing sewn to the aft end. This will be used for the halyard to lift the bag off the deck. And this will be 6 inches, and it'll be folded in half. So this 3-inch loop of webbing will be placed about 1 inch to 1¼ inch inside the edge, the raw edge of this round circular piece. Then we'll sew a box X to secure it in place. If you have a zigzag machine, you can also just do several zigzags, just sew it securely in place. I'll not show the whole process there, but this is sewn now with a box X stitch to secure it to the edge of this round bottom piece. Then we'll take our body of our foredeck bag and we'll take it and fold it just as shown here, and we'll place the logo so that it's about parallel to that top edge, right about this position. It's a good idea to adhere the Sailrite logo. It shows the world that you did it yourself, but it also helps you to remember which side is inside and which side is outside. So it's definitely an aid to do it now before things get a little bit confusing. So we'll sew around the perimeter because obviously glues do not stick well to Sunbrella. And so to keep that logo in place, we'll sew around the perimeter with a straight stitch. Let the world know you did it yourself with a Sailrite sail kit by adhering and sewing that logo in place. Now we'll concentrate on the zippers. The zippers will be 1 inch from that cut that we cut right at that V section. So she's putting a pencil mark 1 inch away from that V. This helps to aid when you're trying to zip this zipper together. If you put it right along that cut, you'll find there's not much space to adhere or to pull the slider into place. So we'll start there, and then notice the slider's on the top side, and we have a little bit too much zipper, so we're going to cut that zipper off there. That's why she's marking it. The best way to do this is to mark it and then slide the slider into place, securing both those sides of the zipper again, and then mark the other side so you get exactly the right length on both sides of the zipper. And the best way to do this is to actually use a hot knife. So we're going back over here to our glass, and we're using the Engel Professional hot knife, which heats up in 3 seconds and cools down in about a minute. If you don't have this, you could use a wood burning tool. There, the zipper is cut to length, and then we'll put that starter box right here towards the V section that we cut out. And then we're also, since we've cut this zipper short, there are no end stops, so we've just taken some Sunbrella fabric that we've used with the hot knife to cut it out, and we folded over the teeth as shown here at this one end, and we'll do it here. But we'll do this when we come to that, when we start sewing it in. So we'll move this zipper out of the place, and we'll start with this zipper. Take it to your sewing machine and sew a straight stitch right along that zipper tape. Don't get too close to the teeth. Usually we like to keep it about a 3/16 inch away from the teeth at least, and usually just right along the foot on the sewing machine. And you notice we're starting 1 inch from that slit we made earlier. And we're using now the Sailrite 111 compound walking foot sewing machine. She did some reversing there at the beginning, and basically just keep that zipper against the raw edge of the Sunbrella. Deb's a little bit on the inside of the raw edge of this Sunbrella, but that's not going to matter much. It doesn't take away too much material. When we get to the end, stop short here. We have to remember to put this stopper in place. Now, if you do not want to use Sunbrella as a stopper, you can take 2 of your teeth, cut them out, and then place them in this end stop, and then melt that with a hot knife. But this is a really nice way and a very beautiful way to finish off your zipper and keep the slider from pulling off. And notice she does several bar tacks there to lock that stitch in place. Now we'll concentrate on the other side of this assembly, and there we're starting from this end, so we have to put that Sunbrella stopper on first before we sew, and Deb will do several reversing stitches to lock that in place. And then again feed this right along that raw side of the key piece of canvas. And the next procedure will be to fold the canvas so the teeth are hidden underneath the canvas. When we get to the slider, you'll notice she'll bury her needle, lift her foot, and slide the slider past the foot so we don't run into it as we're sewing. Bury your needle, lift your foot, pull the slider past the sewing machine foot, and then lower your foot and continue to sew with a straight stitch. When you get to the starter, you can usually do this by hand. It's sometimes easier, or by power, but make sure you do some reversing to lock it in place. If you go through that plastic part of this zipper, it may be a good idea to do it by hand so that you make sure you do not hit one of those plastic ridges and cause your needle to break or your needle to deflect. There we are. Okay, they're both sewn in place there, and there you can see a close-up of sewing that starter end. And now as you can see, Deb is pre-folding this assembly so that the fold is just leaving a little bit of teeth exposed. Okay, shouldn't be right. The teeth should not be right on the fold. They should actually be a little bit back, so there's just a little bit of teeth exposed to the elements, because it'll actually zip together quite well that way. And then when she gets to that hard assembly there, again, she's going to go slow here, and she's even walking the sewing machine with the balance wheel to make sure she doesn't cause any needle breakage or deflection here. You'll notice here she's doing some reversing as well to lock that starter in place. Then she continues to sew straight through the dacron until we come to the other side. Do some reversing there too to lock that in place. And then she's already pre-folded this, but she's going to just follow that all the way down. You'll notice again she does some reversing here, especially when she comes to the starter point to lock it in place. And again, she's doing it with the balance wheel by hand here to have absolute control. Alright, just continue sewing down that long length of zipper. When you get to the end, do a little bit of reversing again. There we go. And here's the end. Oh, we got to move that slider out of the way as we did previously. Bury the needle, lift the foot, slide it past, and continue to sew. And you notice she does some reversing to lock everything in place. There's what she looks like when she's done, and you'll see those the zipper teeth are just a little bit on the outside of that fold, and we're done with that. Now we'll turn this assembly so the right side is on the inside here, and the outside is facing Deb right now. And then she takes a mark to find the center position. There's the center. So we've just used a grease pencil to do that. We'll place that webbing right on there, but the webbing goes on just like this. So that loop of webbing will be facing on the right side, or what will be the outside of the bag. Take a tape measure and mark 2 inches in from the raw edge of the canvas at each side. We're working on the end that's going to have the round bottom piece installed to it right there. Now take that round barrel and we'll just start to sew. Make sure that tab's facing just like this in the video, and we'll sew right along that edge, about a 1/4 inch inside the raw edge of these 2 pieces of material. And it's quite easily done. Just do some reversing here again to lock that webbing in place, but once you start, it's just a matter of pulling those panels together, as Deb's doing here in the video, and sewing. See how she's pulling the panels together so that they're even, and she sews about a 1/4 inch inside that raw edge. When she gets to the other side of this assembly, she's going to stop short, and then we'll work from the other end. Okay, we're going to stop at that 2 inch mark. And right there, she's going to do some reversing to lock it in place at that 2 inch mark and pull the assembly out. Obviously, we have not gone around the complete circular barrel with the stitch, but you can see here she's walking it around to find where to start for that 2 inch piece. If you don't walk it around like this, you'll find that it'll be off when you come to that piece of webbing. So she's walking it around to ensure that when she starts here that it's going to end up correctly done. Alright, she's found that starting position, and she'll take it to the sewing machine and now sew that in place, starting with reversing there to lock everything in place, or bar tack I should call it. As we had done previously, we started at the 2 inch mark. Alright, here we go. We did a bar tack there at the beginning, and we're just matching up those raw edges as we did previously, except for working from the opposite end. Alright, we're almost to that webbing there. Make sure you don't accidentally sew any of the main body assembly together, so occasionally look underneath to make sure that you're not sewing any wrinkles in, but you're keeping that bottom piece of fabric flush and flat. And get to the webbing, do some reversing to lock it in place. And now we just have to concentrate on that 2-inch opening on the opposite end. The barrel piece should reach all the way around the end piece with at least a 1-inch overlap, and you can see here there's more than 1 inch, and there usually is, so she's going to mark just 1 inch from where she started, or at that 2-inch mark that we marked earlier where we started sewing, and she'll do that to both sides. You want to remove or trim the barrel sides by removing similar wedges from the cloth from each side. So at that mark she's going to just take a straight edge and go down and cut a small wedge out of this material. So if there is any excess, which there normally is, of this overlapping seam, cut it off. And do it the way that Deb is doing here in the video, just to almost the center position or a little bit beyond the center position of this bag. So there's our cut line, and she's just going to match it up so that both sides are being cut with approximately the same amount of material. And she's just using scissors here. No need to use that hot knife for all applications. Now we'll match up those short edges of the barrel, and you can use pins or staples or double-sided tape to baste this together to keep it from moving as you sew. In this application we want to start 3 inches from this end here, so that's where we'll start to apply the double-sided tape. We're going to use double-sided tape in lieu of pins or staples here, and this is part number 129. And we'll just adhere that to the one side. We'll peel off the paper backing and then baste these 2 edges together. Then we'll take it over to the sewing machine and we'll sew just inside of that double-sided tape. We do not want to sew through the double-sided tape, because then you would see the glue when you fold this Foredeck bag inside out. Again, we're going to stop the double-sided tape at that 3-inch position that we marked there with that grease pencil. Alright, now you can see Deb peeling off the paper backing, and then this stuff holds beautifully. That reveals the glue. Now it's a good idea to start basting from the opposite end. That's the end that's important as far as being matched up perfectly. You'll notice here when Deb's done that other edge will be actually off a little bit because she really should have started from the other edge. No big deal though, that's the beauty of double-sided tape. You can actually debaste it and baste it back down again. Alright, you can see her rebasting it here. Alright, let's move on. Now once it's basted in place, we'll take it over the sewing machine and we'll start at that 3-inch mark that we marked away from the edge. That's right where we want to start stitching. And again, we're going to use a straight stitch here. Be sure if you use double-sided tape not to sew into the double-sided tape. Do some bar tacking there to lock it in place. Then sew down the entire length all the way to the end. And here we come to the end, and we do some bar tacking there as well. And now we'll just sew that round portion that has not yet been sewn. And fold that flap so that it's under, doesn't matter which side. You can start it right on top of those stitches or a little bit outside those stitches, and be sure to do some reversing at the beginning and reversing at the end. Deb does some reversing right there where that seam has been put together, and reversing at the end, and now you're complete. Now all we do is turn this whole Foredeck bag inside out, and your job is now complete. Pretty easy bag to build, and the construction steps are very well laid out, and the instructions that are included with the kit are done very well. There it is as it's zipped up, and you are done. This should provide years of protection for your jib sail or Genoa. As you can see here in the video, you can see how the cover for the zipper works, and here's the end stops that we installed. You'll notice on this edge that there's a little bit of a fold here that can easily be chopped off with a hot knife or a wood burning tool that makes it look a little bit nicer. So don't cut into your main body or into the main dacron assembly, but just cutting the corners off like this makes it look a lot better. And there's what the finished piece will look like. That's it. I'm Eric Grant with Sailrite, and thanks for watching this video on building a foredeck bag from Sailrite.